Hey, thanks for stopping in. I feel that sometimes something that we all have in common is that there's things that we're afraid of. And I think being afraid of something is one thing, but I think being afraid of something and then acting like you're not afraid of it can put you in a sticky situation, especially if that situation comes to pass and now you're exposed for what you're afraid of. And be it your friends or family or just kind of people that are in your inner circle, they may feel a certain way. They may not necessarily trust you as much as they trusted you before. I think being honest and upfront with what you're fearful of is definitely a test of a man who's living at his edge. And I say that because what I'd like to share with you today is a focused chapter review from the book The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida, with a chapter that speaks on this idea of being fearful and living at your edge. Hey, Mark Johnson here, founder and creative director of Ableist Studios, back again with another vlog. And I don't know if I'm going to continue calling them a vlog, but whatever the case for today, we'll call it a vlog. And so, as I mentioned, I am going to do a review or a focus chapter review on a chapter from the book The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida. But first, if you end up liking this video, definitely give it a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing with the channel, make sure you subscribe. If you end up having a comment or a question or something that you'd like to share on the topic that I'm sharing with you today, make sure to leave a comment in the comment box below. I'd love to start a conversation, a little back and forth on the topic or other topics. And as I've done other reviews, whether you've seen them or you haven't, they're on the channel. And what I'll do is I'll leave a link to the last book review I did, or the last chapter review I did on this book in the description box below, so you can check that out and kind of get caught up. And then lastly, if you want to be notified for any of the upcoming videos that I have scheduled for this month, I'm going to try to be dropping one a week and kind of go from there, see if I can pick up pace and get some more videos dropped. But I'm scheduling one a week, and so if you want to be notified for each of those, make sure to ring that bell. So let's get back into it. So like I said, the example that I gave at top was a person who was fearful of a certain thing and he hid it from the people that are around him. And you can imagine that could be something that could be very detrimental if you were in a squad or something like a military squad or a Coast Guard situation, and the men that are around you or the people that are around you, they trust in you. They trust you to help them. And so maybe you have something that you're fearful of and that's keeping you from living at your edge, and so you fake it, and that opportunity or that situation comes to pass, and now you're exposed. And so what I want to talk about is how to be that man that lives at his edge, where he's facing his fears and giving his gifts openly and freely. And so you understand that David Deida is writing this book in words to help men get to that point. And so to better understand what he's talking about, here's an explanation of what he means by living at your edge. Your edge is where you stop short, or where you compromise your fullest gifts and instead cater to your fears. So I would explain that is by saying that, so there's something that you're fearful of and it's making you sell out, or settle for less, or in a sense give in, or in a sense another way you could say it would be dictating to you how you're going to react. Say because you're fearful of it, and being that you're fearful, there's the response that you're going to have, cowering down or not, in a sense, pushing the issue. That's how I would, in a sense, explain it if I had to explain it. But I don't necessarily think he's talking about being like fearful of like a spider, or fearful of, heights, or fearful of commitment, or I don't think anything like that. But I think the example that he's using here does follow through with that. Saying so, the idea of you're afraid of spiders, so you're not going to do a certain thing, so you're going to avoid that situation, or you're fearful of commitment, and you love this girl, but you you're not going to commit to her because you're fearful of it. So I think it still makes sense, and I think it still has some weight, but let's go deeper. And so as I said, he's not necessarily speaking on fear in those ways. I think he's speaking on fear in the way of keeping you from giving a better contribution, or in a sense challenging yourself to better yourself. Because there's people who they'll avoid a situation because it challenges them, or they'll avoid a certain job or certain type of work because it may in the end expose them for not being the person they are. So they're fearful of what people might say, or what people might say about them based on that. But then there's also people who are fearful for the same situation, getting that job or whatever, because they may be successful in it. So it kind of goes a little bit both ways. But I think he's really speaking more on fearful in those ways, in a sense, giving back to manhood or humanity, giving something that's going to, in a sense, better your livelihood. I think he's speaking on it in those ways. And so there are men who will believe that they have no fears, that there's nothing that they're afraid of. But a man like that is deluded, because the only type of man that is fearful of nothing is a man who's perfectly free. And to be perfectly free, again, like we mentioned, is to be at your edge. If he doesn't know what he's afraid of, that's because he, again, like I said, he's deluded, and his family, his friends, his core group will recognize that he is deluded and that he is what he is fearful of. And so there are men who will never approach their edge because they're fearful of it, yes, but at the same time it may cause them to have to work. It may cause them to step out of their comfort zone. And so in the sense of, a person may end up taking a job that they know they can easily do versus taking a job that may end up challenging them and helping them better themselves down the road. So when we look at it from that perspective, we can see how towing the edge can be beneficial for each of us. And in a sense, doing that, or towing the edge, we are honoring the edge, we are honoring our choices, and we're in a sense bettering ourselves. Or you can look at this statement, which is also from the same chapter, from David Deida, in a sense that says, a fearful man who knows he is fearful is far more trustable than a fearful man who isn't aware of his fear. So in this sense, what David Deida is saying is that a man who knows where his edge is and know what he's fearful of is more, and admits it, is more trustworthy than a man who won't admit it and probably doesn't even know. He may not admit it, but at the same time, he's not the man that we're going to be trustworthy on, because he doesn't even know where his edge is at. He doesn't even know what he's fearful of, and how can we trust him, especially in time where, again, like if it's a situation where it's your squad, or your, Coast Guard, whatever it is, you have to be able to trust on that other person to be honest with you and give you what's really happening. And this is all important because a man who knows his fears and still leans in, living at his edge, putting out his gift, is more trustworthy and more inspiring than a fearful man hanging back in his comfort zone, not experiencing his fear on a day-to-day level. And as David Deida, is in a sense encouraging us to live day by day at that edge, facing our fear and giving our truest gifts. And so to kind of wrap this whole chapter up in a really nice quote. I really enjoy the quote, and the description is kind of giving, because it really gives you an idea of what it takes to be that type of man that lives at his edge and is facing his fear and doing what it takes. And so the quote goes like this: a free man is free to acknowledge his fears without hiding them or hiding from them. Live with your lips pressed against your fears, kissing your fears, neither pulling back nor aggressively violating them. So to me, that kind of like, if you can kind of visualize that description that's given there in that little quote, I mean, you're right at the edge. There's really no in-between point. It's just kind of just like you're varying it, you're edging it, you know what I'm saying? So I think that was a really great quote to kind of really wrap up or sum up this entire chapter. So that has been my review on the chapter from the book The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida. Hopefully it's been helpful to you in some way. Maybe you can implement it in your life. I definitely enjoy doing these reviews because it helps me kind of better decipher for myself what this book is all about, or what the chapter's about, and help me to better implement it into my life. So again, if you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing on the channel, make sure to subscribe. And if you have a comment, a question, or anything like you'd like to share on this topic, make sure to leave that in the comment box below. And like I said, I will leave a link in the description box below to the last focus chapter review that I did on this exact same book, and that way you can kind of get caught up with the previous chapters that I have already reviewed. And then lastly, if you want to be notified of any upcoming content that I'm dropping, make sure to ring that bell, because I have a schedule that I'm working on to be dropping a new video each week in February. So like we always do this time, have a blessed day. See you on the flip side. Let's go.